Sweet summer rain. Sweet summer rain, it is one of God's extraordinary gifts. On a latter July morning, it cools and brings softness to replace an ordinary, oppressive Mississippi daybreak. One after another, the drops defend their territory from the heat, not harshly, but with a gentleness akin to a mother's touch. Einstein's relativity. Time for everyone is just not the same. Albert mathed it with that gigantic brain. He said that he had to concede it all depended on our love of speed. When one goes slow, it hurries away. Fast, then a week is a day. Not swift, like a vet or a bird in flight. The ultimate velocity, the speed of light. Einstein said you could visit Walmart and get back home before you start. I got this story from a friend of mine named Blair Terry that I play golf with. Now, Blair was quite an athlete himself, played baseball at UNA and then played in the San Diego Padre organization. Great athlete. And he talks about that his family was pretty close to Ozzie Newsom's family, and he knew Ozzie pretty well. And Colbert County was playing Coleman for the state championship in Alabama high school football. Now, Ozzie Newsom, for those of you that might not know, was the best tight end in the country when he played for Bear Bryant at Alabama and went on to be an all-pro for the Cleveland Browns in the NFL for many years. And on the way over there, the bus broke down. And so they had to get there as best they could in any way they could. And when they got there, they found out that Ozzie's shoes were missing. And so what he had to do was nobody else had any shoes big enough for him to wear. So he had to play without them. And he caught 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter in a pair of penny loafers. Now, what kind of athlete is that? "2026. He was 20 from high school 2 years. Now he had borrowed money for college that he didn't have to return. He would drive a newer or even new car, wore the latest fashions, lived from his guaranteed loan and his parents, slept until 10 and played pickleball. Some days he gamed, shooting imaginary villains. Life required nothing. It was simple and easy. 1966, the Vietnam War. He was 20, from high school 2 years. He fought to stay in college, but the Selective Service said no. He was needed in the jungle as fodder for politicians. The Con and the North Vietnamese and Ho Chi Minh needed communism and someone to shoot. America gave them both. The new car became a Huey. Pickleball and gaming became jungle warfare against that phantom enemy. He walked with his platoon where it was so thick he couldn't see. The Viet Cong waited with grenades and weapons, oh so patiently. Without warning came explosions and bullets from all sides. He dove while firing his weapon, but it was too late. He died for something that he did not understand. And Mom and Dad accepted his casket, killed for no reason, and they buried him and cried. Underground. The church was old, probably a century and a half. But time meant little to the ones beneath the grass. All those stories had gone to the grave perpetually. Some had been soldiers, while others worried for them constantly. There were farmers and bakers and bankers and teachers, with artists and builders and doctors and preachers. They lived out their lives on this third rock until their ship, which finally reached the dock, and all the worry and all the strife did not add one single second to their life. The yard. Shades of green everywhere. The oak tree's color is deep as the fake flowers at Walmart. The maples are lighter in color and in thickness, proving they can't wait to turn apple red and dandelion yellow. The pine and the cedars are filled with stubbornness. They never change. River birds pretend to be willows, showing the backside of their leaves that look like the green in a pretty girl's eyes. Roses present green leaves, brilliant red flowers, and teardrops left from the rain that glisten silver as the sun returns. The sharecropper. 20 acres filled with a white blanket, the family's income for a year. A bale to the acre could bring shoes and a new jacket. Anything less brought a future unclear. The work was hard and always hot, planting and hoeing and picking the boughs. Living was backbreaking on that little spot. You just did your best. You had little control. A trip to the gin would reveal the price. Would 500 pounds pay the man, or would it not nearly suffice? If not, a new move, a new plan, back to the fields to finish here, scrap enough to satisfy the Lord of the land, and look for new ground in the coming year. Buffett. He was a Mississippi boy born to Mobile. The more he grew, the more the Gulf called beyond. Finally, he could no longer hold still. He decided it would be his own Walden Pond. He sailed and fished and became a guide. Soaked up rays, so even his mustache became blonde. But his true calling was writing songs. The islands and the water held him in bond. The people loved him and came in throngs, and he loved them, and they became one. Thousands of miles were covered to hear his songs. But the rays took its toll on his fair-skinned son, and now he rests right where he belongs, probably fishing the pilings and singing his songs. Congress. It consists of Republicans and Democrats. All I want to know is where the common sense is at. Women swim against 6'2" males. Republicans fight each other like Mexican cartels. They take our money very quietly and give it away with lots of notoriety. Many enter the chambers with moderate means and leave with the gold of kings and queens. They lie to the rich and they lie to the poor. They lie about peace and they lie about war. They travel the world on your dime, while the boss says you need to work overtime. Re-election is their only gold. It's there they play the statesman's role. To paraphrase Mark with the big mustache, they are the only indigenous criminal class. One of the best basketball stories I ever heard was Coach Richard Arnold. We were up at a turkey tournament one time, all of us in the coach's lounge, and he got to talking about Tommy Dean, and he talked about what a great player he was up at Iuka. And he said that he went up there and scouted him. They were going to play him the next night, so he went and scouted him and said Tommy Dean got 50. So he came back, and when they were going through the shoot-around, before they got on the bus and were talking, Coach Arnold said he told his team, said, now look, said, we're going to play Iuka tonight. Tommy Dean got 50 last night. He said he had another sailor's boy was playing for him, and he said, Sailors popped up and said, Coach, if you put me on him, he won't get 50. He said, okay, we'll just pour you on him. So they go up there and they play, and Iuka beats them pretty good. Coming back home, he got to looking at the scorebook, and he told the driver, said, pull over the first spot you can. So they pulled over, and he said, turn the lights on. He turned the lights on, and he told them, he said, Sailors, said, stand up. And he stood up. He said, you told me that if I let you guard Tommy Dean, that he wouldn't get 50. And he said, here he got 53. And Sailor said, well, Coach, I don't believe he had but 47 when I fouled out. I was walking home and it was late, shortcut through the graveyard gate. I talked and sang like with a friend. It was late, later than it should have been. The tombs were sad in the moon's dull glow. No matter, there were ghosts that I didn't know. Each step quickened as my fears grew. There was nobody there to help me through. Clouds thickened and took away the moon as I craved the warmness of my room. A few more steps and it would be done. 6 feet deep couldn't make me run. Then it blasted from under my feet. Sounds mere words could never repeat. Beating my eardrum and fanning my face, and then the disappearance without a trace. I bolted and high jumped the rail, duped and made foolish by a covey of quail. Right brain, left brain. Had you rather write essays and plays, or work on carburetors and refrigerators? Do you prefer Klein and Prine, or instead 2x4s and wooden floors? How about the guitars of Billy and Willie, or brake pads and cement bags? New Orleans on a train while reading Mark Twain? Hammering a nail, then hunting a deer trail? The sound of mockingbirds and turtle doves, or the pop of a nail gun in the hot sun? The smell of a rose as the north wind blows, the odor of grease from a transmission piece, the touch of a book cover, open and worlds to discover, the smoothness of granite resting on the maple cabinet. If you had rather smell carnations than solve algebra equations, you're probably right-brained. Ordinary. Life is full of ordinary days and times. Not all moments are rung in with chimes. Oh, when houses and cars and lovers are new, it seems that their appeal will forever be true. But time moves and takes away the thrill, and the joyful delights reach a standstill. Then the ordinary hours take hold of our life. Those should never be seen as any strife. They are the pieces that form our puzzle, the glue that stops our reshuffle. The New Year's fireworks with explosions in the sky are no more exciting than God's firefly. Fancy restaurants with delicacies to savor can be no more joyful than sharing food with a neighbor. Small moments of coffee and chats with your wife prove the vast importance of everyday life. A smile and a hug from a loving child are gifts from above that make life worthwhile. Events considered common and mundane should make us thankful again and again. It was harvest time. The sights and sounds vouched for it. There were no big machines that folded the cotton plants into a paddle wheel and sounded like a tank corps. It was quiet, save the dragging of the sacks and Miss Ella whistling the old rugged cross. There was an old saying that whistling women and crowing hens always meet to no good end. Although at 10 years I believed it, I could not foresee Miss Ella causing anyone any problem. She was friendly, kind, and put soot from the fireplace on my foot to stop the bleeding from my hoe accident. She also made a mean fried apple pie. Her husband was different, not unkind, but almost deaf, and hoarded money like gray squirrels hoard nuts. Rumor was he had loads of it in a lockbox under his bed. I looked once when I was left alone for a second. The box must have been behind the watermelons. My mom, stepdad, and I were also picking. If we had to depend on me, my family would have starved without a doubt. My mom was the queen. It looked like the locks jumped out of the bowls into her hands. And that's the way it looked and sounded as we toiled in the field day after day in order to have a roof over our head and food to eat. Course of life. Golf is a cruel and fickle game. It can bring joy or intense pain. One day you hit straight and long. The next day everything you do is wrong. Some rounds you feel ridiculous, but on the back nine you might be Jack Nicklaus. The first few holes it's time to strut. Then you miss that 3-foot putt. Who would guess there would be such a fuss with the scream of a clamoring cuss? But still, no matter the score, golf is life's greatest metaphor. Another autumn anthem. It's cooler and the wind has a chill. Not cold, but the kind that causes you to breathe deeply until your lungs are filled with sweet southern air. People's gait is faster as they go about their business. They nod and speak to people that they ignored in the sweltering summer sun. Coffee tastes better and smells, I think, like chestnuts roasting on an open fire. I've never had the chestnut experience, but Nat King Cole thought it was almost as outstanding as Jack Frost nipping at your nose. Leaves began to fall as they abandoned their wooden home and fluttered to the ground like giant yellow and gold and red butterflies. God made them beautifully for those in his image to enjoy. It's busy season for the animals. They begin to pack on pounds and bury acorns because they read the future of the cold and barren to come. God has prepared them with that information, and they listen like a few human beings do. A About 40 years ago, I was playing golf with a friend of mine named Butch Inman, who was the head football coach at St. Joe High School in Greenville. And we were trying to get in just maybe 9 holes of golf in February because we hadn't been able to play for so long. And we got about 6 holes in, and it started spitting rain, and the wind started blowing, and it started getting cold. And Butch turned around to me and said, "You know, when I die, it will probably be in February." Well, 40 years later, I got to thinking about that. Well, I thought about it several times during Februarys through the years, and I thought, I'll put the pen to that. So here it is. When I die, it will probably be in February, and that would be just fine with me. I am simply not a fan of this particular time of the year. Now, don't get me wrong. Some of my best friends were born in February, and that is about where my appreciation of this lunar cycle ceases. It's just a drab month that tries to spice itself up by interjecting a superfluous R in its spelling. There is absolutely no use for that R. It is pronounced as silently as when a southern belle dismisses the R at the end of dollar. A Mississippi Delta debutante has about as much use for the harsh sound of that R as she does old tires used as flower beds, or dinner guests who chew on toothpicks at her table. In addition, it's not even a full month. It's 28 days. And then to add insult to injury, every 4 years they toss a dog a bone and add a day. The weather's wet and cold. There's no golf, no fishing. There is hunting if you can find enough clothes to keep you warm, and more importantly, if you even like to hunt. The leaves have been long gone. Leaves are quite the fair weather friends. And then there's Valentine's Day, the so-called romantic holiday that can make the single, divorced, or widowed want to stick their head in the oven, and the happily coupled feel pressure to spend a week's salary that was cut short during the short month of February on flowers that cause allergies and candy that shrinks their clothes. My advice is to hibernate until the Ides of March. It is the new year of the ancient Romans and the best month for basketball.